My patients are always asking me for a hair loss cure. Could we finally be on the verge of curing baldness, not just slowing it down, but actually reversing it? A team at UCLA discovered a compound called PP405 that doesn't just preserve hair. It reactivates dormant follicles by targeting their metabolic switch. This is real science with human trial data. Let's break it down. Hair loss affects over 80 million people in the US alone, and the treatments we've had for decades are limited. Finasteride works by reducing DHT to prevent further hair loss, but it doesn't really regrow any lost hair. And of course, some people get side effects, which we've talked about in a recent video. Minoxidil was never designed for hair loss, but does work to a degree by thickening existing hair. Hair transplants work great for the right candidate, but of course we're always limited by donor supply. And many patients are not ready or eligible for surgery. And that's where PP405 comes in. What people don't often realize is that in most cases of hair loss, hair follicles are not dead. They're usually in a dormant state. The architecture is still there under the scalp, but the follicle stem cells are in a kind of metabolic sleep mode. If we could find a way to flip that switch back on, get the stem cells working again, we might be able to regrow hair in areas that were previously thought to be permanently bald. And this is where the UCLA breakthrough happened. Their researchers discovered that reactivating hair follicle stem cells was not just about bringing in growth factors, but it was actually about the metabolism. And the key protein here is the mitochondrial pyruvate carrier, or MPC. MPC controls how pyruvate, our cell's fuel, is shuttled into the mitochondria. By inhibiting MPC, the cell shifts from mitochondrial respiration to glycolysis, a different energy pathway. That shift reprograms the stem cell's behavior, activating it to grow hair again. And PP405 is a topical MPC inhibitor that triggers this exact shift. But you see, MPC inhibitors are not new. Actually, in the 1980s, there was already an MPC inhibitor described called UK5099, and it was previously studied in mice for hair regrowth. But this MPC inhibitor was less specific and it had more off-target effects. PP405 is essentially a new generation MPC inhibitor, but optimized for topical use and targeted delivery in hair follicles. So let's pause and compare PP405 to some of the mainstay treatments for hair prevention and regrowth. Minoxidil works indirectly by promoting blood flow and increasing the anagen phase of the hair growth cycle. Finasteride, as we mentioned previously, works by blocking hormones, and we have many videos on finasteride if you're interested in learning more. But PP405 works at the cellular metabolism level. It doesn't interfere with hormones, it doesn't require injections, and the goal here is not to slow hair loss. Instead, the goal is to regrow terminal hair by turning dormant hair follicles back on. And in mice, this metabolic strategy worked beautifully. PP405's metabolic shift, elevating lactate dehydrogenase activity and NAD plus to NADH ratios, mimics signals that reactivate stem cells during the hair growth cycle. Hair regrew in bald areas. Follicle stem cells became active again, which was confirmed by Ki67, a marker of cell proliferation. Reduced mitochondrial pyruvate flux may also lower reactive oxygen species, creating a favorable environment for stem cell activation. And that gave the team enough confidence to try PP405 on humans. Now, just to clarify, PP405 does not boost NAD+ in the same way that NAD IV therapy does. Instead, by shifting cells into glycolysis, it actually increases the NAD+ to NADH ratio inside the cell. That redox change, especially through the activity of lactate dehydrogenase, is what helps kickstart those dormant stem cells into action. So while it's not an NAD+ supplement, it does highlight how manipulating cellular redox states can promote regeneration. And that's exactly what the NAD+ anti-aging world is exploring, just from a different direction. Now back to PP405. In 2023, they launched a phase 1 clinical trial to assess safety. 20 male participants with androgenetic alopecia applied PP405 topically for just 1 week. And even in that short period of time, many reported an improvement in their hair. The drug was well tolerated and did not seem to enter into the systemic circulation, which was a major safety milestone. With safety confirmed, they moved on to a larger phase 2A clinical trial in 2024, this time involving 78 participants, both men and women. Many clinical trials for hair loss mainly involve male patients, so I think it's really good that they got women involved early in these clinical trials to hopefully have a solution for women as well as men. This was a placebo-controlled, double-blinded study, meaning that neither the patients nor the investigators knew who got what, and the treatment arm received 0.05% of the PP405 topical gel, and this was compared to a placebo. Each was applied once daily for a total of 4 weeks, and follow-up continued for up to 12 weeks. And by week 8, they already saw some promising results. 31% of men in the treatment group saw more than 20% increase in terminal hair density, compared to 0% in the placebo group. There were no systemic side effects reported, no hormonal interactions, and there was no reported systemic absorption. But so far, the drug company that makes PP405 has not released any before and after comparative images showing these actual results. Now, of course, as with most drug trials, they usually keep this a bit secretive until they have enough data to gain approval from the FDA, and then they're more likely to release their results, including before and after images. So if PP405 proves effective in later, larger trials, how might it be used in clinical practice? It could potentially be used as a standalone treatment in mild to moderate androgenetic alopecia. It could also potentially be used in combination with surgery to improve density outcomes. But maybe we'll use it in combination with other medical therapies that are tried and true, like finasteride, minoxidil, laser light therapy, microneedling, or PRP plus minus exosomes. These might potentially have synergistic effects with one another. This could be a major advance, but we need to stay tuned for more data, including high quality before and after imaging. Until we have one of these newer, more sophisticated ways of regrowing our hair, consider trying the tried and true finasteride and minoxidil combination. That's available at feelconfident.com at a very affordable price. Let's talk a little bit about who's behind the PP405 drug. The molecule is being commercialized by Pelage Pharmaceuticals, which was spun out of UCLA. They raised over $30 million from investors like Google Ventures, and they're now gearing up for phase 3 trials to start in 2026. So this isn't just some fringe activity, it's mainstream, well-funded clinical research that looks like it's headed towards FDA approval in the next few years. As someone who performs hair transplants 4 days a week, I've seen how life-changing they can be. But not everyone's a candidate and not everyone wants surgery. And of course, plenty of people are afraid of some of the existing medications like finasteride. So a non-invasive topical treatment with this type of potential is extremely exciting. But we still need those phase 3 results and longer safety and efficacy data. But the mechanism does make sense, and the early results are quite promising. I am a bit concerned about some of the early study results from other older MPC inhibitors like the UK5099. At least in a petri dish, it did show some poor performance on human hair follicles over time. But hopefully PP405 will continue on a better trajectory. Pelage plans phase 3 clinical trials in 2026, which will be larger, more diverse, and longer term. If everything goes well, we could see FDA approval for this medication as early as 2028, meaning that it might be on the market in the next few years. You know, when I think about medical therapy for hair loss, specifically androgenetic hair loss in men, I think about basically 2 different categories or buckets. The first is prevention, and for that, the best that we have on the market is finasteride finasteride and dutasteride. We have it available in pill form, we have it as topical formulations, but essentially those are the main two medications that we know of that truly help with prevention of further hair loss. We have other weaker DHT blockers, ones that we also included in our Feel Confident shampoo, like saw palmetto, pumpkin seed oil. Those are great, but they're not as potent as these medications. And then you have this other bucket of ways to stimulate essentially some dormant hair follicles. And in that bucket, the most beneficial, in my opinion, in terms of efficacy and overall well tolerated and quite affordable, is oral minoxidil. And then you have other options like PRP, microneedling, laser light. Those are also some good options. So it looks like PP405 is going to be within that stimulation bucket. And like with all the different modalities under stimulation, you generally reach a plateau, right, of like how much you can stimulate these hair follicles to truly get them thicker when they've thinned out quite a bit or when an area is completely bare. And you reach this point of like maximum stimulation that no matter how many more modalities you add, it's not going to get that much fuller unless you come in with a hair transplant and really thicken it up. So I don't know exactly where PP405 will fit into that algorithm. Perhaps it will be just as good as oral minoxidil, and then we can replace it with this safer topical formulation of PP405, and maybe that'll be great. But I still think it will be important to prevent further loss of hair. So I'm not really sure if we're getting rid of the finasteride dutasteride. Perhaps we're just adding something that will be really effective in the stimulation bucket. And I don't think that this will replace the potential need or desire for people to have hair transplant surgery, because the effects of that can be much more significant than really all these different stimulation modalities. And also with hair transplants, you can put hair in places where maybe there wasn't even hair before, or where it's completely been bare for decades. The thought of being able to stimulate the hair to grow back decades after it's been completely wiped out of an area is, I think, unlikely. But I remain open-minded and excited for these results to continue to come out, and we'll see, what the actual images look like of these people who are getting this topical gel of PP405. Let's wait and see. So I am, as always, cautiously optimistic for any of these new modalities for hair loss to come onto the market. But even if PP405 gains FDA approval, it will still be the new kid on the block. And for many patients and providers, there's that better the devil you know than the devil you don't mindset. Finasteride and minoxidil are surely imperfect, but at least we have decades of safety data on how they perform. With something new, we need longer-term follow-up, post-market surveillance, and time. So now I want to hear from you. Would you try PP405? Would you use it instead of finasteride for first-line medical therapy? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'll be responding there, and I'll be updating you guys on the latest trial results as they become available. If you want to stay up to date on PP405, hair loss science in general, and hair transplant surgery, make sure to subscribe. And please sign up for our newsletter at feelconfident.com. Thank you so much.